of the population during any given year is on prescription medication. And the number one, not surprisingly, is antibiotics. But number two is antidepressants. And number three is opioids. OxyContin, Percocet. And that's unbelievable. Now, here's another one. In 1998, there was approximately 10 tons of OxyContin produced worldwide. 10 tons in 1998. By 2013, we were up to about 130 tons of OxyContin produced worldwide.
Wow.
130 tons. And 90% of that is consumed in the United States. That is generation addicted. Right there. That is where all this heroin problem has come from. We've had heroin in the United States.
Yeah, heroin's been around
forever. I mean, in the 70s, we got it from Vietnam. In the 90s, we had a spike because of the heroin chic and all this, but it always went away. Now it is being fueled by the doctors. It is being fueled by prescriptions for opioids. Now we're starting to get our hands around the neck of that snake. The doctors have figured out, you talked about cutting off the pipeline. When we cut off that pipeline and we started to do it, everyone thinks, all right, so the heroin problem will go away then? It won't. These are addicts. They are addicted right now to opioids. When we cut off the opioids, and we've started to do that, we are going to see a 5 to 7 year spike in heroin and heroin overdoses. So everyone get ready, buckle your seatbelts, and hold on to your armchairs, because it's coming, and it's going to be ugly.
Yeah, it's not stopping a Ferrari, it's stopping a train.
That's absolutely right.
You know, it's going to it's going to get nastier, and I see more and more that people are. I had someone I work with that got addicted to opioids, and I watched that slide where it went from pain medicine down to addiction, and just watch it change him, and people enable him, and it just wasn't good. And I remember when the worst problem was somebody on the next block up, his dad drank too much, and that was the worst problem you had. And you didn't even know about marijuana, but it's amazing how we're sheltered even regionally. If you look back on Hill Street Blues episodes in the 80s, they spoke about crack. We didn't know what crack was in Philadelphia. You know, we didn't know for another 10 years or so in the mainstream in Philadelphia. And like you said, heroin's been around forever. It's not heroin that's the problem. And I'm not advocating heroin as a daily supplement or anything, but it's not a sudden thing. Heroin's not new. It's this whole we get so many people that go missing because their chemicals get mixed, and they say, Tom seemed fine, but then he got up in the middle of the night and walked out in his pajamas, and things are just off balance, and the person walks out and does something and takes their own life or something, but you don't think they were in their right mind. There was something else going on there with the wrong mix of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And once you start mixing them all together, and one thing that we've seen recently that is a real problem is when people are mixing opioids and benzodiazepines, you are tremendously increasing the chance of creating a long-term addict. And people hadn't realized that. Not even the doctors had realized that. But now they're starting to catch on to it. And, you know, as you said, back in the day, the biggest thing we worried about, even in law enforcement, was that our cops occasionally drank too much. And sometimes we would have to put them into an alcohol program. Now we have to worry because we have some cops who, by the nature of their jobs, they get injured. They blow a shoulder, they blow a knee, and then they get put on opioids for 30 days. Some of them never recover from that. Some of them become addicts. And we have learned that we need to monitor even our law enforcement to make sure they're not getting sucked into the same thing that these street kids are getting sucked into.
Well, we don't. It's not having a uniform or anything doesn't change that. It's not a matter of. We all have different capacities to be addicted. I think that there's no way to measure it. There's no way to know.
Now, if you took it's like the autism spectrum. If you took the entire population and put us on a spectrum and said, how likely are you to be addicted? That's brain chemistry.
Yeah,
and
that's complicated.
There are some people who, based on their family history, are going to have a predilection to addiction, whether it is alcohol, whether it's drugs, or whether it's something else. And then there are other people who they can drink socially and they're fine. They can have surgery and be on opioids for 2 weeks and go off them without any problem. But you really have to monitor and make sure where you fall in that spectrum.
I know a guy who, when he stops drinking, he's a mess. He's a mess. It's exactly the opposite of what you would think. And you don't want to say, start drinking again. But, you know, he's a mess. When he's drinking, you can't tell. When he's not, you can. It's just bizarre. And these things impact people in so many different ways. There was a missing person down your way. We got called, and her husband seemed detached. He didn't seem very interested in it. And his wife's missing, and he's getting his kids off to college. And I don't judge people by the way they grieve or react to something, but he just wasn't even, you know, we were just disrupting him. And it seemed, my assistant chief said, just seems suspicious. He seems overly. He said, she's done this before. She'll do it again. I've been through this a million times. I got to get them to college. She'll be fine. Hurricane came in. Found her. She was far away in a yard, out covered with everything. Slept through the hurricane. Ambien or whatever, and woke up like nothing happened. What are all these leaves doing on me? He was exactly right. This was normal for him.
It is the new normal in our world.
Yeah, the new normal is not normal. You know, it's not normal at all.
Wouldn't it be easier for us to like restrict the doctors in prescribing these terrible drugs? You know, you don't need Oxycontin or whatever else is the terrible addict thing. You don't need. My dad, I would go over my dad's house on weekends, and whenever I would get a splinter because we were moving wood for the wood stove or something, and I said, "Al," he would say either "Al's not here" or "You'll live," and you would just put up with the pain.
Yeah, tape an aspirin to it, you'll be fine.
Take a few Tylenol, you'll be fine.
And we actually are moving in that direction.
Yeah, wouldn't it be?
They just started doing, the emergency rooms are no longer allowed to renew prescriptions for opioids. 2, if you're prescribing opioids for the first time for a patient, you have to go into the prescription records to see if they've been prescribed opioids before, who else they're being prescribed opioids by, to make sure they're not getting them from multiple doctors. And there are some states that are now putting hard caps on you can only prescribe this amount of opioids, and then they have to come back in and see you again, because opioids were really designed for end-stage cancer pain, just absolute breakthrough pain. They are not designed for somebody who is in short-term pain.
Right, and they should be restricted to that level of pain.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, the rest of the world seems to be doing it without opioids. It's only in the United States that we are this heavily reliant on opioids. And part of that is because our doctors were taught, and our children have been taught, that they shouldn't hurt. When your father told you that, it's going to hurt for a while, you'll get over it.
You'll live.
Then, kids learned, all right, it's going to hurt for a while and I'll get better. Now, kids today are taught you shouldn't hurt. And doctors are taught. It was called the fifth sign. The fifth vital sign is pain, and that their patients should never be in pain. Now, that is changing. Doctors used to only get, over the course of their 4 years in med school, they would get half an hour of training on opioids. Now that has totally changed. Now they get a lot of training in medical school, and they have to get updated training every year on it because it is such a national health crisis. If as many people were getting killed by guns or by cars as by opioids every year, if as many people were killed by one disease as are killed by opioids every year, it would be on the front page of every newspaper, and we would devote nothing but our public health money to solving that problem.
It would be nice to solve that problem.
Well, you know, what you said there was very true. There's things that have gotten aged out. Like, we don't use the word inconvenience anymore because nobody can even fathom what's an inconvenience. Everything's got to be major. We don't use the word discomfort anymore because it's got to be painful. And my father was bigger with bigger injuries. I don't want to go injury doing with you, but your little splinter story doesn't quite cut it there, cowboy. You know.
That was just an example.
You'd knock a tooth out and my dad would go shake it off. And frankly, he was a little
Suck it up, deal with it.
Yeah, you know, he wanted you to walk off cancer. You know, that was a bit much. But somewhere in the middle is reality, and we swung too far that we think, I know that, and as I've gotten older, I've compromised a little too. It used to be when there was something, I wouldn't even take the pills from the doctor. As I've gotten older, I won't take the pills, but I'll take the pills to have them because there's nothing like that middle of the night back pain or tooth pain or something like that. But I was in the hospital and they gave me morphine, and morphine is great. I cannot say enough about morphine. Morphine turned me and seduced me right there in. As soon as they give you that, you're just in love with the universe. So
Okay.
I get that. But there was a point where I said, take it off. Said, I'm very uncomfortable right now, but I think I could sleep. I don't want it anymore. And I think that people, how we're genetically engineered is right. But I think there's also how we're conditioned for discomfort and what we expect out of the world, you know. I think you're at a generation where pain is the internet not working, you know, and they don't understand discomfort or inconvenience or anything anymore. And that just leads to there's this whole instant gratification thing that is very seductive. I am thankful that I did not have that when I was growing up to seduce me, because I probably would have been as bad as anybody I mock now. But I was raised at a different point.
Too much medical, medicine being prescribed anyway. You know, everyone, like you were saying, kids would raise their hands in a classroom and, who's on medication and, but.
Yes, now you go into the average classroom and 50% of the kids are going to raise their hand.
Yeah.
But
it's the norm. It's the norm.
My mom tried to have me put on medication. I did an experiment. I told her I took the medication, and she's like, "Oh, there's an improvement. There's an improvement." There was no improvement. I didn't take the medication.
I don't know what side you're supporting now. I'm confused.
I'm supporting the side where I don't take the. You don't need it. You don't need it.
Yeah, and there are some people that
don't need it.
There are some people that absolutely need it, and there are some people for whom it's overprescribed.
Yeah,
and we just have to do a better job of figuring out who those people are who really need it.
There's a guy I'm going to have on in a couple weeks. It's been through the mental health system, and he was involved in some stuff, and he went from criminal to model citizen that is an advocate that counsels people, married, and he got his life completely together because he had a brain abnormality that was balanced out by chemicals in the right dose. He says, you take those chemicals out, I'm a different person, and that can happen. That can happen. I think too many people lean on that crutch too easily. But it's just, and I'm anti everything like that because I'm very fearful of anything addictive. I think that it's part of my personality. I had a problem with chocolate chip mint ice cream years ago. I got over that. I shook that, so I fought my monkeys. This is my monkey right here, and I'm not naming the product. It's radio, so you can't see it, but I can't. It's not alcoholic, just so you know.